If you don't know what a conference is, it's similar to a convention, but for even nerdier nerds who likely have degrees, publications, and careers in their fields of interest. So think furry convention, but the furries all have sociology PhDs. This episode is about the time I was ghosted by a conference volunteer and lost $100. You can laugh at my folly and learn a valuable lesson about trusting strangers online. Welcome to Drawn to Story, a voiceover and drawing series where I talk about my experiences. These can range from publishing to editing, illustrating to nature. In this video, I'm drawing the cover of Solarpunk magazine issue 11. This cover features as the star of our unfortunate circumstance regarding the volunteer. Today, I'll be complaining about a time I felt unfairly treated by an internet stranger, one of the worst crimes to ever taint my history as an editor. I'm just kidding. Quick but important note, if you happen to be the one person who knows what I'm talking about, please don't publicize the volunteer's name or their affiliations. I've moved on from the whole shebang and now get to make content from it, so who really won in the end? When life gives you lemons, you mind them for story. Once upon a time, I was contacted by someone via LinkedIn, and they promised a lavish representation of my small magazine at a renowned convention for the meager price of my soul. Allow me to provide some context. I'm co-editor-in-chief of Solarpunk magazine, a digital zine currently produced by 4 people, all published writers of their own accord. We publish work in the solarpunk subgenre of sci-fi and fantasy, meaning we purchase short stories, poems, art, and nonfiction written in the vein of futuristic sci-fi that celebrates balance between humans and nature. Solarpunk as a subgenre features advanced technology that often assumes a periphery role in its characters' lives. For example, a character might use low technology to water their vegetable garden, relying on, say, an ethos of permaculture and knowledge of indigenous species to produce a sustaining yield that requires no more water than a rain barrel can provide. This character also relies on a fantastic, free system of healthcare. They never have to worry about shortages because medicine is abundant, their identities and care are not politicized by the cultural paradigms, so they don't have to worry about healthcare-based discrimination. Medical technology like MRIs and whatever tech a solarpunk writer can conceive is available, accessible, and if it's far from where the character lives, there are services available to transport them. This hypothetical character also lives in the global south. The quality of life is substantial and capitalism is dead. So that's a taste of what we're cooking up at Solarpunk magazine. Now that you've gotten the eco-friendly picture, let's set the stage for the incident. I was chilling with LinkedIn open like no sane person ever does. It was the early morning of I see a notification blink into existence. Hi, I'm a volunteer at redacted conference. I'd like to host Solarpunk magazine at a table. If you're interested, we'd like a few issues and posters to display. Let me know. Mind you, the conference was only a few weeks away at this point, and several states away in terms of geography. For those outside the US, that would be about 3 Nepals. No, I'm kidding, I made that up. I thought, aw, an overburdened volunteer is scrabbling for content, and we're a chronically barely funded magazine with a niche audience? This is a perfect match. Let's do it. We're a digital-only publication, so I sent the volunteer 3 issues they display on iPads or the like at the table. And I know what you're thinking. Are you out of your mind? Sending your tiny team's life work to some random? This reeks of scam. Girl, you were This was not a scam. No, scam is a word that means fraudulent scheme, and this person was a real overburdened volunteer with a portfolio and online presence to cross-reference. And they didn't ever ask for sensitive information or utilize scam tactics like an exaggerated sense of urgency, a falsely presented email address, or links. But it's super important to always be wary of scams on the internet, even on reputable sites, even from accounts that seem credible. So if you were thinking scam, good job. You have critical thinking skills. Anyways, the non-scammer volunteer and I corresponded over email. At the time, Solarpunk magazine didn't have any posters, so I made one using the cover I'd drawn for issue 11. This cover was also featured in the December 2023 Utopia Science Fiction magazine special art issue, by the way. Still very pleased about that. The volunteer wanted posters with an S, but I only had time to create one large poster at 24 by 36 inches. Still, the volunteer insisted that two posters would really serve stunt at this conference, and I thought, hey, volunteer knows best. So I put in a $70 plus order with a print shop local to the volunteer for two large posters. Some might think, girl, why would you? But in all honesty, there's nothing unfair or suspicious about a volunteer expecting the company they're offering to represent for free to foot any of the expenses. That's not the same as, say, a client in your DMs asking for free art in return for vague exposure. This volunteer is going to physically showcase our publication at a heavily populated conference on their own time and energy, so I have zero qualms about this aspect of the exchange. I'm always willing to invest in my own work. However, it turns sour. The day of the conference arrives. My little editorial team is so excited about having our mag represented at a decently large event. Remember when I bloviated about Solarpunk magazine earlier in the video? I talked about how we're all about hope, reparations, equity, all the ingredients for a positive futurism salad. We were brimming with joy. Our team is spread out across the US, but none of us lived in the same state as the conference, so we'd be represented by a person I'd only ever met through LinkedIn and email. We put a lot of trust in this volunteer, whom I hadn't heard from recently, by the way. Yeah, where was the volunteer? How are they doing? I sent a final good vibes message a few days before the event. I let them know that the posters were ready to pick up at the time they had asked me to specify. I had to arrange the pickup for the posters many states away, and it was really tricky due to time zones. If I were to do that again, I'd send the volunteer the image files, Venmo them the money, and have them arrange their own printing and pickup. In that same email, I let them know that if they needed any info about our magazine, I'd be happy to provide it. Because people would be seeing this super colorful table set up with iPads and two large posters, and they'd probably have questions. Things like, what's the magazine about? How long has it been running for? Where can I purchase the issues? Who are the editors? Things that an internet stranger wouldn't commit to memory. The silence was a little unsettling, but this was a volunteer, and if you know how conferences can go, you have an inkling of the chaos that may have been unfolding off-screen. So I left it at that. When the conference ended, I sent a follow-up. Hey, redacted, how did the setup go at conference? Nothing. No response. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if they're volunteers with shared interests and goals. Maybe they were having an emergency. Maybe they couldn't even make it to the conference because something happened, which is fine. Maybe the conference was on fire like the rest of the planet. I'm sure they'll update me soon if that's the case. I went on with my day, my week, my month. At the time, I was a first reader for Grist's annual Imagine 2200 writing contest, so I had no shortage of beautiful, moving writing in which to lose myself. Then, I get a call. The ID shows the state where the conference had been held. It was the print shop. My posters were never picked up. How could this be? My poor abandoned posters. How? Why? $70+. Oh no. I ended up working with the nicest print shop people I'd ever had the pleasure of awkwardly explaining a pathetic situation to. They actually offered to mail the posters to me, which is not a service their shop provides. The two women just wanted to be helpful. They stayed in contact with me over phone and email for that 2-day period as I purchased a shipping label from my local shop and then emailed them the PDF file of it to place on my posters. Another $20+, but at this point I just wanted my posters. I hated the idea of having my art left to rot, you know? The shipping label was its own little ball of stress. I had a lot of trouble getting my local shop's website to just work as intended, but eventually everything was in place and the posters were on their way home. Huge kudos to the print shop people. I received my posters a short while later, all curled up on each other like little paper babies. Then I tossed them in the closet. I'll find a good space for them eventually. It was enough just having them and knowing that 2 other people sent them to me on their own time to avoid throwing them away. And that brings me back to the volunteer. Reader, I was quite stern. I sent a professional email expressing my disappointment at the lack of communication. I was especially incensed because they had insisted I purchase 2 posters instead of one. I felt quite used, like I was an excess that ended up cut from a production and couldn't even be spared an email letting me know. I was upset. Yeah, not in a day ruining, bridge burning way, but in a shaking my head, here we go again way. Anyways, I sent my professional rage email expecting to never hear from this person again. However, about 10 days later, I did hear back from them. To summarize, they thanked me for my support, time, and money. They were unhappy with how communication went on their end and with the waste of resources they caused. They provided some context. Apparently, the conference was poorly or chaotically run, resulting in volunteers dropping out, those that stayed burning out, and many items remaining at the print shop due to, I don't know, like lack of people to go get them. It seemed like the volunteers had to prioritize conference essentials like speakers for panelists and food for everybody. They also vowed to pick up the posters and share them at similar events, which gave me the impression of a knight shoving the posters into hard-won battlegrounds like a flag of victory. That would have been cool, but the posters had already been mailed to me. Ultimately, they apologized, I acknowledged that, and we moved on. They intend to organize their own event, but way better, and I wish them luck. It's not like my communication has never accidentally fallen through. Live and learn, I suppose. What did I learn from all that? Was it perchance don't collaborate with strangers online even if their propositions seem sound? Nah, I'd do something similar again, just with changes to how I approach things like pickup and money. Solarpunk Magazine is still open to collabs. We've done them before, and they were super successful and fun. Rather, this kerfuffle was an opportunity to practice coping with anger and disappointment in a professional manner that also expresses these feelings to the opposing party. This is a rhetorical skill that I find foundational to working as part of a team, so it was a good moment for me as a team player. As for the posters, I was able to gift one to my mom to hang on her wall. I was so warm and fuzzy seeing my work framed intact. I remember when my bold and brashes were pinned to the fridge as a little kid. Sometimes stuff just works out in the end. Thank you so much for listening. Have you ever been ghosted before in a similar manner? And how did you deal with it? Let me know in the comments. Hope to catch you listening to the next episode of Drawn to Story.